Okay, let's get started. So if you haven't already, this discussion is in B courses under Files, Discussions, Pandas discussion. Please download this along with the Titanic CSV if you haven't already. So this first question talks about slicing and splicing. So we have this data frame that I'm sure you guys have seen in lecture. It's just different types of food with restaurant names and then their prices. So if we print this out, we see it as a data frame. So we won't do all of this so that we can touch on the next part of this discussion. So we'll start with, we'll do parts 1 and 2 for this first section. So we want to use the log operator to get the rows 1 and 3 and column food. And then we want to get rows 1 and 2 and columns food and restaurant. So for part 1, get rows 1 and 3 and column food. What do you guys think we should do for that one? Or when we use lock, do we pass in the column names or do we pass in numbers? I think lock is the names. Yeah. I always get them mixed up too, but
The way I remember it is like I lock is
integer lock.
and I plus one and then lock says sometimes.
Yeah, so for lock, we want to pass in actual names. So maybe the rows is a little bit difficult, but how would we get the column food?
Like the name of the table and then like in quotes food something.
So we need one more thing in between the name of the table and the food. Yeah. So our table is food info. So we're going to do food info dot lock, and then in brackets, we're going to put the name of the column in quotes. So if we do this, I don't know. Why is that not? Oh. Okay, so if we just put food there, it's going to think we're taking the food row, which is not true. We're taking the food column. So we need to have this colon. So this will give us all the rows of the food column, but we just want rows 1 and 3. So how are we going to do that? Mhm.
Then I put a colon, yeah, put the indexing vertically. You could do 0:2:2.
Mm-hmm. And then why do we do this? Yeah. So when we do this, we're starting at 0, ending at 2, and we're skipping every other, or we're taking every other element. Okay, then for part 2, it's really similar to the first part. So take like 2 minutes and try and do it on your own, and then we'll come back together.
Are you saying the first row is like row 0?
Yeah. Okay, anyone have any ideas on how to do this one? Mhm.
You have to use locker.
Yeah, we still have to use log. Sorry. Anyone else have any ideas? Yeah. Like this? The only thing here is that I think when we mean rows 1 and 2, we mean like the actual first and second row. So what would you change here? Because this gives you the second and third rows. Yeah. Yeah, great job. So yeah.
What is format change?
In which part?
Like, for the first one, you get kind of, you don't really get a table.
I see, I
So
see.
you get-
I think it's because this one takes only one column, whereas this one takes two. So this one you kind of have to put it in a table, but this one, like, usually when you take one column from a data frame, it turns it into a series. Okay, then let's skip to part 1B, and we're going to do parts 3 and 4 here. So we want to get rows 0 through 2 exclusive and columns food through price. And then in part 4, we want to get rows 0 through 3 exclusive and columns restaurant and price using iLock. So take like 4 minutes to do these two parts, and then we'll come back together and talk about it. And this time you're using iLock. All right. Anyone figure out these two or want to share what they have so far? Mhm.
It's pretty much the same as the part one and the other one, but my lock is exclusive.
Mhm.
So you have to change the bit to 0 to 3 and skip every 2. Or the. Basically,
Oh,
do you want me to go?
sorry, I meant part 3 and 4. Oh, you still okay.
It's food info at IHOP 0 to 2.
Like this? Yeah. So we wanted rows 0 through 2 exclusive. So you have 0, 1, and in columns food through price. So food, restaurant, and price. So if we look back at the original data frame, that's exactly what we did. Is there another way we could do this? Just put a colon here? Yeah, we could do that too. I think if you don't even put anything here, that works too. So if you want like all the columns and just like certain rows, you don't have to really specify what columns you need. It's only an issue when you want all the rows, only some columns, because you need to specify the rows. So the operator takes in rows first and then columns second. Okay, then what about part 4? Anyone get anything for this one?
There were 3.
Yeah. We wanted rows 0 through 3. So we have 0, 1, 2. And then we wanted columns restaurant and price. So if we come up here, it's the first and second column. So we do 1 through 3. And that's how we get this one. Okay, any questions on slicing and striding with data frames? Okay. Oh yeah.
Can you walk? I walk up and.
Yeah.
And just depending on what you want.
Yeah. I prefer the other indexing method where you just use brackets. It's a little bit easier for me, but whichever method works best for you. Okay, let's skip to question 2 for now. And if we have time, we'll go back and do these ones. So question 2 requires the Titanic data CSV. So make sure you have that downloaded and in the same directory as this file. Otherwise, you'll run into a file not found error. So make sure your data is in the same directory as, or the same folder as this Jupyter notebook. So we run this, and then if we want to print out and see what it looks like, so what does it look like? I'm pretty sure we showed you guys this in lecture. So for part 2A, we want to find the shape of the data set. Does anyone remember what method allows us to do this? What was that? Very close, except we're not going to use NP. We'll just say that data frame and then dot shape. So it's Titanic dot shape. How many rows and columns does this have based off of this?
Rows and, well,
Yeah. So
columns starting from like the actual count.
the actual count. So and when we printed it out here, it'll always tell you at the bottom the number of rows and columns. A little bit easier to see that way. But if you ever need to like put it in code, the number of rows and columns, this is a good method instead of like hard coding. There are 891 rows, just in case you end up adding rows or like adding columns too. And then here it tells us what each column represents. So this first one's the total number of passengers, if they survived, what class they're in, name, gender, age, all of that. You guys can see that. It's really useful to know what the columns are in a data frame, especially, I'm not sure if you guys have encountered this yet, but in your final projects, when you look at data, a lot of the times the column names are abbreviated and it makes no sense. So always like look and see if there's any documentation for your data, because that'll be really helpful. Sometimes when I work with data, I'm like, what is this? This makes no sense. But if you find documentation, it's very like explicit. Oh, this table or this column means this. But sometimes you're not so lucky to find documentation. But yeah, when you find data, just make sure you understand what the columns mean. Just so like towards the end, or like if you start it late, you're not like scrambling to find new data. So finding data is the hardest part. Just make sure that your data is good and you understand what the columns mean and how you're going to use the data. Okay. Okay. I want you guys to do 2B and 2C. And I want you guys to work with the people at your table. So if there's nobody sitting with you, move to another table that has like less people and then work with them for these two ones, 2B and 2C. And then we'll come back in about 10 minutes. Thank you. I was not ready to come back. I was so upset. I don't know. I know me too. I'm kind of just like,
And then, yes.
I
still leave it the column. Isn't it right, sir?
especially since like only 3 more weeks.
You know, the ones.
I know.
Yeah.
I got it to start later. I didn't set it up in the spring.
Oh my god. Do you like it?
Yeah. I do.
It's good. I was thinking of switching.
Oh, no.
Back.
Mainly because my work is remote. So I was like, oh, I could like it would be nice to have a laptop that I could just take anywhere. I can work it. So I mean this one's not bad. It's just,
Oh, like after that movie.
yeah.
I
Like it, I'm a machine learning engineer.
attended.
So
Oh.
I'm very excited because and we're so
And remote
I
one.
know. I'm so happy about that. And also, like, I'm not gonna interact with anybody except my roommate. So it's gonna be good.
Are you gonna like still be in town?
Yeah. My family's here. So.
I don't know.
I already moved like last year. So I don't wanna move again. And then finding another roommate.
So much. Since your roommate also.
Yeah, or no, she graduated this year. She works at the lab.
Oh.
So she's gonna be there for another year. She goes to grad school. Yeah. Yeah, then I'll just go home.
That was.
To save money. Yeah, when you pay your tuition, so.
It worked. Oh, here, so.
Like. Use the bell.
Really?
Oh no, because you're starting with one survive.
Yeah. It was a total number of, even for every month.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, so then. I guess, wait, so then you just like survived index that one. It survived as like 891. Like the fraction of people that survive. Yeah, so. That's pretty good. It's not bad.
I mean, it's their situation.
Yeah, we put that into eggs, like.
And,
You should be.
If you don't have, if you don't have, if you can't put enough like with them. Just, I was like, that's what it's actually, it's something.
Yes, Liz. First. So box. So values. Let's see. Let's respond to me. So, let me see. This one. Yeah. Can't read this. They can never read any of these.
That's so.
So it's sad, it's so bad, it's too. Yeah, I'm just doing it. First, let's see. Oops, we're gonna make this names. So we're gonna make it here. We call names what happens. They don't want. Maybe that's what.
This is no. So that is. Yes.
Data frame thus for values.
We had to DF, that's.
Maybe it means names, but. What? So Pandas something. Wait, yeah, sorry.
Oh, not data, sorry.
Um. Yeah. Kind of. No. It's saying, oh, I spelled it wrong, that's why. Nope. Could you, sorry,
This is sort of finance, so there's not much help or something next.
Yes, it's everything.
8:45, 7:06, Tuesday. But actually, no, that doesn't make sense, because if you're sorting by name.
Number one. That also. Okay, so this is what I'm doing. Not that, maybe, no, I did. But saying, this should be.
So why?
So bad. I'm going to just find the story. Do you have any questions? Yes.
Because we don't have to.
We are already. This person is that by. And second. False. You're in.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then oh, because yeah, but
Well, yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, but that's the day to day, just looks like. the dot.
no, but it's in that everyone down.
Thanks.
But I think the overall this is also. Yeah. Like someone was maybe. Maybe five. So I just said something, I mean, it's zero, because I was thinking, they all like go over the numbers and some of them.
No one can have any-
No, I didn't, all the times I see it there, I'm just like, I was getting this.
Yeah.
Miss Catherine. Oh, you're right. Miss Catherine, because that's like Carrie. Johnson.
Johnson.
Johnson. Miss Margaret Edith. Reverend, wait. So, yeah. Is he making it doesn't his last, and so you just take the sum of both of them, and then we start just really like outline. Wait, I think you can notice this, but. That's what you know. And then I just took it.
853.
The number of rooms. Oh, good. That's long.
So the-
Nothing wrong.
This is
Mrs.
she,
Dawn.
Dawn Bradley.
Yeah, but she-
Parts of grade, what is it?
She should do it because she's. So she.
Oh, yeah, I guess most of the survivors. At first class, but also like female and children.
Patrick already died. Yeah.
Well, that paid $30 for its first class. So that's-
Oh, that was sweet. Like a big sweet. Yeah. Yeah, but I don't. Because also did. Yeah, I do. Did it for this one? I figured out how to get in this life.
You could, but also like it's,
Yeah, 'cause I think it.
so the way to just think about it, you could just.
Yeah.
One entire.
No, wait.
Just one.
Oh.
Yeah, that's like, you could totally do this because it's gonna display it on Pandas, but like another like more like a way to do it. Hitting column in the data frame. It's just fine.
Okay, so I could use the I. Does that say? This word. Okay, right. Like we're only using one, like the middle, but. But this only works with three.
I should write out this one first. Okay, so that's what we're looking at. So that's getting, that gives you. And so then you're counting some.
What happened?
Oh, what was right? Yeah, so just leave it to the values running, just so you have it like. Yeah, and then you can just sum across all of these. Because what reason they're not all of these. If they don't, they're not a bit, right? So that should. Yeah.
But in that case.
Try.
But
Okay, I guess, yeah, that makes sense. No. Yeah, you can survive. Yeah.
Also, my name.
Oh, okay. That's true.
Oh, very.
Alright.
Perfect.
What's some accents? Okay. Like, I just.
Everyone has like an A.
Why don't you? I think that's a problem.
Well, A is the. A is the one that like.
Well, maybe there's like a.
Okay,
Yes.
let's go over this now. So, a lot of people had something for this first one. So does anyone want to share what they put for this? Also share like how you started it, because everyone that I talked to started it correctly at least. Mhm.
And then I out and saw that.
Hello.
I think you should put some time inside.
Oops. Mm-hmm.
Then I indexed into row, I guess, row 2,
Mm-hmm.
and then I divided it by the sum of that.
Like this?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if we go back to our data table, our survived column has a 0 if they did not survive and a 1 if they did survive. So when we use value counts, it'll take every unique value and then return the number of times it appears. So let me just add another cell here. So when we did this, we passed in the survived column specifically, And when we do value counts, it tells us how many had a 0 and how many had a 1. And then when we index into this, just be careful, this is not a 2x2 data frame. This is a single like series, or you can also think of it as an array, where like this is like the index. This and this is the actual like value. So when we do this, we get the second value. We get 342, which is the number of people that survived. And then when we take the sum, we just add all of those together. Did anyone do it another way that they want to share? There's lots of ways to do this.
I did it with for loop.
Okay.
I basically made a count that kept counting every time you found one that, like, in the column that you put one,
Mhm.
and then you added it to that, and then you took the final count and divided that by 8.
Okay, so like that's another way, but we would prefer not to use for loops. Just because like there are these methods to do it like really fast and like one line. Like imagine you had a data set with like 10,000 rows. And that would take a long time to go through it with a for loop. Anyone do this another way? That they want to share? So one thing you could do, I think I talked to somebody about this. If you ever have a column and it's zeros and ones, and you want to find the number of ones, you can take the sum of this column, and it'll give you the number of ones. And then you could divide that by the length of the data frame. Okay, we have a couple minutes left, so let's do part 2C. Okay, this one wanted us to use a sort values function to organize our data frame based on the names of the passengers in alphabetical order. Something to be wary of is that in Pandas, there are functions used for series and there are functions used for data frames. Just like be careful when you look at the documentation that if you're doing something specifically for a data frame, it is for the data frame. It's a function that's used for a data frame and not for a series. Sometimes like things get like wonky there. So does anyone want to share what they did for this one?
Titanic sort values in the parentheses, 5 equals, then have ascending response.
Okay, does anyone see anything wrong with this code?
I mean, I don't know why that's.
It's because it's descending, so it takes like the furthest letter in the alphabet as the highest value. So we actually want it in ascending order. Does it say? Oh, you're correct. Sorry. I read that wrong. Yeah, this is correct. Sorry.
Is it just with the data that it jumps from B to B?
Yeah. It's because it has like we could do it more sophisticated, but that's kind of out of scope for the class. But it's because it starts with it's taking like the first letter instead of like the first letter of the first name. Okay, any questions before you guys go? It is 11. I would, on your own time, try to do 2E, 2F, especially 2G. This one's, I would try to do this on my own. That's it for today.